Hi, Jennifer Rice here. We are on to video number 2 of this week's Whiteboard Wednesday, where we are exploring what we can learn from the orchestra in terms of how to become more future ready and how to synthesize a lot of your disparate activities like Agile, customer experience, digital transformation, and design thinking. There's a lot of different people with different passions, and they're all trying to march down these different objectives, but you can only do one culture change. You can only focus your organization towards one vision. So I believe that a lot of these different trends that are happening are all really important, but they cannot be tackled in a vacuum. They can't be tackled in silos. We have to break down these silos and get everything aligned. I call it getting all the wood behind one arrow. So I'd like to offer up a term. I like to use the word orchestrated thinking as opposed to design thinking, which I believe is a little over-rotated towards right brain innovation. There's a lot that we can do in terms of linking together structure and data and analytics to help focus the organization around where should we be playing from a competitive standpoint, which then gives us insight into what kind of customers we need to focus on for our perceiving exercises, our design thinking exercises. This is especially important in very complex businesses, which is what I tend to work with. So that might be financial services, utilities, B2B, government, healthcare. You're serving all kinds of people. So how do you start narrowing the focus? And in order to narrow the focus, you need to have a blend of structuring and perceiving in order to focus in on what matters most. What is the most bang for your buck? This then provides your strategic focal point. Your strategic focal point is essentially the theme, if you will, of your orchestra. It provides the structure, it provides the sheet music, it keeps everyone on the same page, keeps everyone aligned. And then within that, once you've provided this, just like great jazz, you've provided the container and the structure, you can allow the rest of your organization to improv, but improv in a way that you know and are confident that you are going to be driving towards the shared focal point, the shared outcome. I believe the shared outcome is both tangible and emotional outcomes. So think about a symphony. You not only want to technically provide them, here's your symphony, but you want them to feel something and talk about it and bring people back the next night, right? So a lot of this is about emotion. And if you don't have a focal point that is anchored on both tangible and emotional outcomes with your customers, I don't believe that you can be fundamentally successful. My 2 cents. So from here, now you can diverge back out in terms of attaching and connecting the rest of the organization up into this. Again, leveraging the right brain, leveraging the connectivity, breaking down the silos, you still have specialization. We're not saying that specialization goes away. The specialists need to still exist. We need subject matter experts. Simultaneously, we absolutely need to make sure that there is connectivity. So skills like customer journey mapping, breaking down these silos to make sure that from the outside-in perspective, the customer perspective, they're actually getting this seamless experience that is delivering the particular outcome that you want to deliver. So I do very much think of this as an orchestra, right? And what it also allows you to do is to cut away, let's say, the random instrument that decides to play their own thing because they'd rather play, jazz and you're trying to play Beethoven. This is a really good way of directing not only hiring practices, culture building practices, cutting away those big initiatives that are totally sucking out your resources when they're not directly driving to the strategic focal point. So imagine this really is a dynamic system. You have left brain structure informing perceiving, you have perceiving and structure informing how things should be connected. The connection actually helps inform the components, the doing part, and really all of this kind of informs everything else. There is a dynamicness to this. Now, if this actually sounds a lot like customer strategy, it's because I just walked through what is a customer strategy last week in last week's Whiteboard Wednesday. This is the underlying principles underneath customer strategy, which I fully didn't wrap my head around because I hadn't fully owned the fact that I operate in a much more right brain way. I like to think of myself as left brain, but truly this is a marriage of both. So let's talk about what this actually means for your business for today. I'd like to offer up this role of orchestrator. This is a great CEO is going to be a great orchestrator. I think Steve Jobs was a great orchestrator in terms of marrying outside in and right brain with left brain ecosystem. I think it's really critical for professional development. And the reason why is the way that I landed on this is because my career has taken me through every single quadrant. I started out up here in the agency business. I then moved over into management consulting, where I got that beaten out of me because it actually wasn't welcome. But I learned structured thinking, and I learned how to create in a linear fashion. Although I still err on this side, right? So I'm kind of naturally a connector. And then I worked at Forrester, which really gave me a lot of the understanding of all of the different piece parts within the organization and how they all need to knit together in terms of customer experience and digital transformation. So my career actually covered this entire map, and I've been able to make all these connections. So I can say that my center of gravity is probably a little right of center, but I'm incredibly comfortable. I'm very, very fluent with numbers and structure and metrics and all those good things. So I think in terms of the professional of the future is not going to be over-rotated on their left brain like they are today. This is going to be taken over by AI and robots eventually. And it's no longer a strong point of difference. The future really is in orchestration and professional development. Ideally, if you are resonating with this, your next step is, if you're right brain, to learn the left brain. If you're a specialist, learn the outside. And there's always going to be places where you are much more naturally wired. But in a pinch, if I had to tie your right hand behind your back, I bet you'd learn how to write with your left hand. And I think we're getting to that point in our society. So, all that said, we now have a program called Art and Biz. It is specifically designed to walk you through this and develop different sides of your brain that have not been fully developed. We're going to have an individual retreat here in Santa Fe where we're going to activate left and right brains, big thinking and specific thinking, and really exercise both of those. Ideally, we'll have a mix of left and right brain thinkers. And we also have an offering for teams to develop your customer strategy. Again, we're going to overly exercise those sides of your brain that you're not as comfortable with. Not saying that you're going to suddenly become a designer, but we're going to give you a level of fluency and then come together and from that shift in perspective, develop a plan that will help you become much more focused and aligned and create much higher ROI in your organization. Lastly, I would like to set this out into the world. I think orchestrated thinking fundamentally, and I don't think there's much argument, right? We all kind of recognize this need for balance and that it's not a one or the other thing, but there's a both and happening. So I'd love your comments. I'd love your thoughts. Push this idea forward. And if you liked it, share it. And I will see you next week's Whiteboard Wednesday. Thanks a bunch.